Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John, and this video is going to be talking about my health diagnosis that I got 2 days ago. And if the thumbnail on this video sounds like complete clickbait, it is. It couldn't be more clickbaity because I want to see everybody to see this video because I think that this video might be helpful for people in the future or maybe someone you know. So I've been waiting a couple of months for this diagnosis and I've been diagnosed with MS. And it was funny because I'll take you through the stage of how I got to sort of get to this. And I'll tell you about what the consultant said when I went to see him 2 days ago. It was very interesting when there's things that come up and I just couldn't believe it. And I thought, you know what it is? I wasn't going to make a video about this. I was just going to mention it on the video and just say, look, this is what it was and this is what happened and this is where I'm at. And I will talk about what it sort of means to me in this sort of the scheme of things. But the most important thing is that this diagnosis of MS is there's something that I was aware of for about 2 months that could be this. I didn't want to say anything. I wanted to tell my son. I told my son last night, and he was okay with it. He knows people with MS, and the main thing I want to stress about MS is it's completely, it's like a thing that affects people in different ways. At this moment in time, it hasn't really affected me. It has kind of affected us, but not in a way that I think it. Well, I have a vision of MS, and the vision of MS that I'm thinking of is not where I'm at. So I just wanted to stress that it's not one of these things where I'm going to, harp on about and say this is like it's like a sympathy vote. It's not at all. I feel pretty much exactly the same as I did before all this, with a few exceptions, and I'll talk about them. But the main thing I want to talk about before I get into that, before I talk about what happened to me, I'll talk about what the consultant said. So me and Deborah went to the RVI in Newcastle. We went to see the consultant, and he took us through everything to do with the scans and everything that would do with that, the MRI scans on my head and spine. And going into it, I was pretty much convinced that I had MS or a form of MS, but nothing. I don't know anything more about it. Now, what he did was he took us through my history. Like, I haven't got much of a history with doctors. I hardly ever go to the doctors. I'm quite fit in a way. I do go to the gym. I haven't been to the gym since lockdown, but I will be going back there because of what he said. I need to do some gym work. And what he was saying was, he says, let's go through a few things, talking about this and that. And I was just talking about things in general. He mentioned a couple of things I'd mentioned to the previous neurologist. I just wanted to speak about a few things. But one of the things that like really came to light, I was talking about a time when had a numbness in my body, and he said, "Hang on, let's talk about that one. That could be very important." So he said, "What happened to you?" I said, "Well, I put it down. I picked somebody, obviously working in care. I did pick someone off the floor, which I shouldn't do. So I picked this person off the floor because she needed to be got off the floor. And the next couple of days, I started to get this sort of numbness in my legs, and it travelled up from my legs. And he said, before I even said it, he said, "Did it stop round about here?" I said, "Oh yeah, it did." And he said, "Eventually, did it go down the other way?" And I said, "Yeah," I said, it did exactly." And Deborah said, "Yeah, I remember that. This was about 2011. This happened." So on the spinal MRI scan, he said, see, there's your neck, and he said, you've got two things you've got one in your neck, which I'll get to in a minute, and you've got one there, which is sort of in your back. He says, I think that was when you lifted that person up, or at the time of that. I said, do you think it's because I lifted that person up? He said, I don't know, because these things, this MS is like an infection, shall we say. I don't know much about it. I haven't looked online. He says, don't look online. I'm going to go to the MS nurses and they're going to tell me the way forward and all this. If there's a medication is needed, I'll get into the medication in a minute. And so, yeah, he said, I'm thinking, that's definitely MS, definitely an MS flare up or an attack. And I was thinking, I didn't even think this was the thing. I said, was I born with? He says, no, you weren't at all. He said, this thing's come on. He said, I think you've had it for about 20 years, going on what I was talking about. So, like I say, this is why I'm making this video, because I want to say to anybody who's listening to this, has this ever happened to you? Is this something that you put down? Did it go away in a couple of weeks? Did it last for a bit longer? Did it last overnight? Well, I think overnight would be a bit quick. But it could be a MS flare-up. And what you need to do there is you need to go to your doctor and just say, I had this happen. This happened. It's an unusual thing. And I think what they will do is they will put you in touch with somebody and probably have an MRI scan. And that will show up if you've got one of these things. It's like the spine goes like that, but you can see this sort of like I'm going to say like shadows a bit on your spine. And that he said that's what it is. He said that's like the scar. Let's call it a scar. That's the scar from when that healed up. He said because you got over it. In 2 weeks' time, your feeling came back and it came back to normal. I said, yeah, I just put it down to maybe a nerve damage in my back. He said, no, that was definitely MS. So that was 2011. I did talk about when I had labyrinthitis, which is awful. That was in 2009. I think he thought that could be something to do with MS. He wasn't too 100% sure on that, but it's the kind of thing that can happen. With labyrinthitis, you feel like you're on a big dipper all the time, and you feel like you're just constantly, you can't stop being sick. You can't stand up. I was like fell for a week in London. Can you believe it? And then I came back, went to work. More about that in a second. And then I went back on the sick for a week because I couldn't stand up for another week, and then I was gone. Now, that might not have been something to do with it, but he said it could have been. Now, also, what had happened was around about that time, I was working at Strattles. I was lifting gravestones up, big heavy stuff. I remember picking a generator up, and when I picked it up, I definitely heard these two going click, click, and didn't hurt at all. Put the generator on the back of the van, big, huge thing. And what I did was, when I was sort of, after a while, this finger started to go numb. And the numbness travelled down here. This was over a week or two. It travelled across here, went across here, and then started going to these fingers here on this hand. Now, what had happened was, when I did go to the doctors about this because Deborah says, you never go to the doctors, do you? And I says, well, it just kind of righted itself, which is something I'm talking about on here to say, if you've got any of these, don't let it right itself. If you've got a thing, God forbid anybody gets anything, but if you've got one, go to the doctors and say, I've got this. You don't have to say, I've got this as a form of ME, but the numbness, I think, because he was talking about, I said, I was checked and it was told it was carpal tunnel syndrome. And he said, I don't think it was. And he said, but in them days, 2009, he said, we'd have switched on as well now. And they might have put it down to that. He said, but I think because of the way I had my hand like that, and it was just thingy. I couldn't stop it from closing. It used to close all the time. Couldn't hold a fork. Couldn't write. And then it moved into this. This hand sort of cleared up, and this one went into that one, and this started doing the same thing. And that lasted for a couple of months. But you kind of get used to it. You just go through it, and you think, oh, because this one's rated itself, this one will rate itself. I'm mindful of not lifting heavy stuff up like a jerking thing. Like at the gym, you've got to be, you don't want to sort of do that because I know it could have been that, but it could have been part of the ME as well. So this is going back to about 2009. Also, I did this numbness. I've had that twice. I did have it in 2011, and I probably had it in around about 2020. And the 2021 just came on from nowhere. And I put it down because I have got a bit of a bad back, but on the scan, it showed that I've got a disc out of place at the back. So that's a thing, but you can get around that. And that's what I put it down to. But he said, no, that was definitely another MS flare up. He said, it seems like you've had about 5 of them. He said, but the only good thing is you kind of got over them. You've been able to right yourself. He said, but at this point, we don't want you to do that anymore. He said, immediately, if you get any feelings of numbness in your body, I've got to go to him. He'll get me some medication. So I'll get rid of it. He said, because we need to treat these flare-ups now. You can't just let them go. Well, he won't let us let them go because I'm under his care. And obviously I've got the ME nurses as well. I'm under their care. I'm going to see them soon. The further things I'm going to get done is going to be, I'm going to have some x-rays behind my eyes. I'm going to go on blood pressure tablets, which he said your blood pressure is high. He said, we'll get that down. He said, I want that to be lower. And also he said that I'm going to go on vitamin B. He said, vitamin B is good for you. So we'll get some vitamin B tablets, especially at this time of year because there's no sun. He says you'll feel a lot healthier for it. I mean, I feel okay. He said, so what about your tiredness? And I says, well, actually, I said, I work shifts. I work some long shifts. I work some sleepovers. I do feel tired. And Deborah says, well, you look more tired than you have ever done. And I thought, well, sometimes I do feel pretty wrecked. And he says, yeah. He said, he said, long shifts and tiredness is a big part of like something you've got to look after yourself for, which I can't really go to work and say, right, I'm not doing any more long shifts. That's not going to work out for me. But I have taken my hours down recently, thankfully. And that means that I can kind of relax a little bit. And by that, I mean, It's just long amounts of work or long amounts of anything, I think, is kind of detrimental. And don't forget, I don't know everything about this. I mean, I'm no expert at all. Just heard about this 2 days ago. Had a big long meeting with him, and he said that probably your head's going to be smashed by all the information you're going to like receive. And he said, but you'll get them all, spoken to you at length of the nurses, and you're going to come back and see them. So I'm just telling you how I see it at the moment. I don't know all the answers at all to this. But what I do know is he did say, because when I heard the word MS the first time around, and this is why I didn't speak about it, because I thought, well, I'll take you through how I found that out. So around about the 20th of October last year, I was eating tea with a spoon. And you know when you sort of eat with a spoon, I went, hang on a minute, that doesn't feel right. It feels as if my mouth's numb. So what had happened was, when I looked, well, I didn't tell Deborah immediately. What I did was I went to work the next day for a whole sleepover, and by the time I got home, I said to Deborah, and I did talk to people at work, and I said, "Look, I think there's something up with my mouth there. It's not working properly." And they said, "Yeah, you can see when you sort of your mouth is really like kind of wrong there." And I felt as if me, just this was drooping. I thought it was drooping, and it was. So of course you think stroke, you think, my God, what is it? And you do think of palsy, which is what it turns out to be. So I went to I said to Deborah, I said, look, this has happened. She says, right, let's go to A&E. So I went to A&E and I said, I got this. I got seen straight away. I was there for 10 hours to do all these tests. I had MRI scans. Well, that was the last thing I had. I had CAT scans, had blood pressure, the whole thing. My blood pressure was high then, actually. And what they said was, right at the very end of it, they said, look, your scans, you're good to go, but your scans showed up something and we don't know what it is. So you have to come back and see a neurologist. So I went back and seen a neurologist who said, it looks like it's MS. And I was thinking, oh my God, I had this vision of MS in my mind. So that's what I'm saying to you as well. If you're thinking that these things are, you've had these type of things and you're thinking, oh, you've had some scans and you might be kind of diagnosed with forthcoming MS. It sounds a bit daft, but if you feel kind of normal and you just something little has happened to you, it probably is going to be something you can deal with forever. I don't feel as if I can't. This is going to beat us. That's because Deborah's seen what we're going to do now, and I says, well, we're not going to. Well, we're going to follow the doctor orders, of course, but we're not going to do anything differently because I don't think this is something at this point that is going to affect me in a way that's going to make me change anything drastically. Is what immediately, as soon as she said MS, the original neurologist, I thought this is going to be just my mind started going. So obviously, it took a long time for the results to come back. I was just to a sort of well, I was seen in one jurisdiction of the health service, and then the other person was there, and the things didn't get transferred over. We heard that 1,000 times. I did say to the woman, I said, this type of thing shouldn't happen. She says, I know. I says, we'll have to get a better system. But anyway, I'm not knocking them. They have done a great job. But if you're waiting for results and they're taking more than 3 weeks, that's another thing I've learned. Get on the phone to anybody and say, where are my results? Because these results were ready in November last year. And we found out about them in January of this year. So it just shows you if I hadn't rung up. But that's by the by. It happened. It didn't change any circumstances. So yeah, so that's what happened, and I've been waiting all this time. But in the time, this mouth thing's all cleared up, which you said it was. You had an infection there, and the infection has caused this palsy there. I'm left with in this year's quite low, the deafness in this year. I don't know if it's getting better sometimes, especially when Deborah's going around the house or she comes in. Usually you can hear the front door go, and I can't hear it anymore. So if I'm in the kitchen, all of a sudden Deborah turns around and the house is empty as far as I know. And she comes in, how I'm like literally passing out with fright. But anyway, and I'm going to get that looked at actually. He's going to take it to a hearing specialist. So all these things are going to get checked out. Another thing was as well, I'm talking about just this and that. And he said, you have had any problems with your eyes? I said, well, I said my vision was quite good. And I used to read books all the time. I used to have loads of bookshelf. The bookshelf was here. I had loads of books in it. I was always reading books, which I haven't done for a long time. I used to read them at night in bed. And I used to read them nearly with the light off. I could see pretty good. And then all of a sudden, the next day, whenever this was, I would say in the early 2000s, I went to read my book and I just couldn't see. It was just like a total blur. And I thought, I can't believe this. So I'm doing this with it, trying to get my arms right out. So I got glasses and everything. I went to see the person about the glasses to get a prescription for my glasses, and they said, I said, oh, me eyes just went, because I thought I'll have to mention this to them. I says, my eyes literally went overnight. They went from being, as far as I'm concerned, I could see everything, to literally not being able to see something up close. So she had said, or the person had said, nah, it happens. That's just the way it goes. Your eyes are just muscles, and your muscles are just sort of packed in. So I told the specialist this, and he said, that's not the case. I think he's thinking this could be a bit of that thing. So we got talking about my eyes, and I said, well, there was one time, and he finished this sentence off of me again. This is why I'm saying to you, if these little things have happened to you, and you've thrown away to say, well, it happened for a day or two, it is gone. It might be, or possibly will be a form of MS, or in this MS. Well, let's think of it as what's it called? An infection in your body. And sometimes it affects something. And you get over it sometimes, and sometimes you don't. Fortunately, I've got over all of these to a certain extent. And he says, well, what I was doing was I was driving to the end of the street to go to Deborah's. I didn't know this. And I said, I did tell you about this one. I said to the specialist, and also the people, the nurses, there was like some student nurses there. I says, oh, we're going to have a ruction here. We're going to have you're going to see a bit of a fight or a divorce on it, jokingly. It says, when I got to the junction, I was looking that way to see where the traffic was coming, obviously looking both ways and that. So I looked there to the right, to my right, and it seemed as if my left eye didn't travel at the same time. I looked immediately there. We did this test with all these finger tests and all that to follow my vision. It said my vision's perfect now for the reaction to my eyes moving. And I felt as if this eye didn't move at the same time. He said, was it like lagging? I said, yeah, it felt as if I thought I was going crazy. He said, so it felt as if it took that eye to catch the time to catch up with this one, is what you're looking at. I said, yeah. I said, that felt exactly like that. And he was saying that more or less before I told him what it was going to be. He said, MS. So I was like, wow. I said, so all these things, the eye problem, if you've ever had that before, if you've got double vision especially, which I haven't had, and you've got this kind of thing where you go like that, but this one seems to stay there before it catches up. That's a form of MS, or a form of MS attack. I'm going to use these terms. I don't really know about these terms yet. I'm not going to look online. It's not something I'm going to do. He did tell us the form of MS I've got, which I've kind of forgotten about, but it's going to send us a letter about and tell us exactly what it's like, because there's different levels. And yes, so the eye thing, the numbness especially. So I had this numbness in my hands. I put it down to carpal tunnel syndrome. It could have been partly to do with that, but the fact that these both went and they had this strangeness about them, he was saying that sounds like MS to me. He said I wouldn't put it down to carpal tunnel. He says, but at the time, going back to 2009 when I had this happen, maybe that's what they thought. He said these days we know a lot more about it. We're more like proactive. We will look at stuff like that and we'll put it down to saying it's that, and it might not be that. You will go for your MRI scan, and if it doesn't show up anything, good to go. But if it shows up these dots, which I think I had 5 dots there, and also had these two things in me. Actually, the neck one, he was saying that's what's caused that. I said, what this here? He says, yeah. He says you got spondylosis. I knew I had a bad neck, but he said that one you've got there, and he showed us the vertebrae it was in. He said, that's definitely done that. I said, I can tell you for a fact. So I said, well, and the one lower down has been the one that's caused the numbness. Now, I'm guessing on this, if this numbness had went and never went, that might have been a problem. It might have been something that I couldn't get over. He said, did you have any problems with your mobility? Could you walk properly? I said, oh, I could walk all over. I said, just felt like my legs didn't belong to me. He said, yeah. So I done loads of tests. I did all these sort of balancing tests, and I did loads of visions. I did colour blindness. I did every single thing. And pressing on this, he did me reflexes, which is about 1 million reflexes, doing them all around here, around there. And I'm going, whoa. I said, I didn't even know this was a thing. But it was thorough. It was really good. I can't thank this bloke enough for putting my mind at rest as well, because he says, are you all right about all this? I says, well, coming in here, thinking if I heard MS, I would have thought bad things about this sort of this examination, this kind of chat. I said, but the way you've explained it to me, and you told me where the level I'm at, how it's going to affect me at the moment, how I'm going to going on, how I'm going to see people, professionals. I'm going to be in the loop. I'm going to see him every 6 months. I'm going to get a CAT scan, MRI scan every 6 months. He's going to keep an eye on us. So he's hoping, he says, I hope to me, with whatever we do to you, you're just going to carry on exactly like you are for the rest, and that's it, good to go. But we need to keep an eye on you to make sure that if anything's going sort of wrong, we can keep on top of it. And I'm going to regularly see the MS nurses as well. I'm going to probably have a hotline or a phone number I can ring up and say, look, this is happening. It said it, any numbness, you come straight back to me and you get treated straight away. You get some tablets, it'll get rid of it. It says because we don't want this flare up to sort of go to anything worse. So yeah, so that's the health thing, and it's like I say, this video is not for any sympathy. It's not at all. Actually, I feel it sounds weird. I feel a bit better. I feel better for knowing this. And also, don't forget, if this thing hadn't happened, I would have never known it. He said, if you hadn't come for this, we would have never known. We would never sort of like thought to check about you. And that's why I want to go and talk about this, the numbness, the sort of body numbness, the eye thing, the labyrinthitis, possibly. It might be a bit of a heads up that you can have that I didn't get because I would have never known. But I'm saying, if you know, or you know anyone who's maybe said maybe a friend would say, hey, that's like, your legs went numb the other day, or, I'm feeling, my body feeling numb, it feels like really weird. And they're not going to do anything about it. You want to say, get yourself to a doctor and just explain it to them because it might help you out in the future. And hopefully this video getting to whoever it got, that's why I've done a complete clickbait thumbnail. I personally hate those clickbait videos when you go on them. You're not going to see what you're going to see. It's going to be some kind of molar, and you think that I've been totally robbed of 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but you watch at the end and you're cursing because you think, I can't believe I've been, you know, hoodwinked into watching this video. So to recap, after our initial shock at hearing the words MS, it's turned into something that's, yes, it's there. I understand it to a certain extent, although I'm not no expert. This is just my personal experiences, and hopefully these will kind of resonate with somebody, and it can maybe lead somebody to say, I'm just going to get that checked out. Might be nothing. But I think that if you go and just explain to say, look, I've had numbness here, I've had this, I've had labyrinthitis, I've had the eye thing, I've had the feeling of certain things about, I think numbness is that maybe I've never had numbness in my arms or something. Maybe it's your shoulder. Maybe it's something on your neck. It's something that I think that numbness, for want of a better word, that comes and it feels like you've got literally as if you've been injected in the leg and it's like dead. That's the type of numbness I'm talking about. You can use it, but you just can't feel. I felt as if I could have just stuck a needle straight through me leg and it would have never felt any pain. That's the way I felt about it. Like no sensation. So if you got anything like that, do go to the doctors and get it checked out because it might be nothing, hopefully nothing, or it might be something that you can start some action now, and you can get yourself like getting seen. See, the thing is, I'm 56 now, and I've been seen now. I've been diagnosed. I know exactly where I stand. I know exactly my pathway going forward. I think I'm going to be okay. If I'm not, I'll know when it's coming instead of it just being something that's going to hit you all of a sudden. So if you're in a similar boat or you see a similarity to some of the things I'm talking about and you get yourself checked out, maybe you can stop what's maybe coming. Maybe that's what I'm going to do. Or maybe the fact is, if this hadn't happened, I would have just went on life, had these flare-ups from time to time, which didn't go anywhere. But I just wanted to put this out there to make you aware that these things could be MS. And I was talking, and I do want to thank everybody who's got in touch with me and private messages and messages on my, asking me constant, have you heard anything? Have you heard, I've got a lot of things over the months and I've said to them, I don't know anything yet. I didn't talk about the MS thing. I did to a certain few people, but I didn't want it sort of getting out there. My son, I hadn't told my son until last night. Like I say, he was all right with it. He knows someone. He works as a personal fitness, instructor. And he said he looks after people with MS as well. So he's perfectly well. As I said, it's nothing to worry about because that's, you think yourself, people might worry. I don't think at this point, and Deborah was worried at the time. I mean, I was worried, but after going and seeing and knowing where I stood, I don't feel worried at all now. I feel quite kind of, I don't know, I feel good in a way that I can kind of move on. I can say, right, what's next? You feel like you've a pathway carved for you, but you're going to follow that pathway and still do everything that you want to do. He says, go to the gym, get your cardio up, all that type of thing. He didn't say it was, oh, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. He said that MS has got a bit of a stigma to it. And I'm just here to tell you that in my personal experience, that's what I thought, but it's not like that. And you do need to get checked out if this resonates with you. Hopefully this video is going to go to as many people as it can. I hope it doesn't just stay in the film community. I hope it just goes a bit, not viral, just somebody from any walk of life is going to see it and they're going to think, hang on, what's all this about? And hopefully you'll watch it and you'll not get the same clickbait experience when you go, what load of rubbish. This couldn't be further from the stuff that's on there. Hopefully, the thumbnail it's got will deliver this. And you will clicked onto it. Yes, I've deliberately done it to make you click onto it, but I hope it's delivered some kind of message to you and helped you out or anybody you know in a certain way, if that makes any sense. So anyway, thanks for watching. Big thank you everybody again for getting in touch with me and wishing me well. Had some great messages here, very supportive, and obviously people off YouTube and in life they've all been so generous to us with their well wishes. So thanks for watching. You take care and get yourself checked out if there's anything that's bothering you. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.